Fires a long one.
Oh,
Nothing but net. Oh, my goodness. Didn't see that coming. I'm diddly dee.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of All Nat, brought to you by OTS. I'm your host, Natalie, but most people call me Nat. And joining us again for part two of my special basketball conversation is Steve Berman. Many of you may know him as BA Sports Guy on Twitter. If you're reading his work in The Athletic, if you're not, you should be. But he is joining me so we can break down all the things going on for the Warriors this week with their road trip. Got Chicago Bulls. You have the Bucks, not in that order, but those two teams. Also, we're going to probably talk about a little All-Star. We were chatting about that offline. I was like, you know what? Let's start recording because this is some good stuff. So we're going to get into a little All-Star. Of course, we're going to talk Clay because that's still the biggest news right now with the Warriors. There's some injuries. So we have a lot to get into. So
Absolutely.
Steve, thank you for coming back and joining me for another conversation. We couldn't get it all in the last episode, but we had so much to talk about. So we wanted to finish that. I wanted Steve back. He's one of my faves to talk to. So Steve, thank you.
Of course, anytime, Nat. Anytime you want to have me on, or as I call you, Natalie.
Do you call me Natalie?
I've called you Natalie before, yeah.
I don't
Absolutely.
really pay attention. I know there's like a handful of people that do call me Natalie, but most people really do call me Nat. My best friend, though, calls me Natalie. She's never called me Nat a day in her life, which is crazy. I'm trying to think what my parents call me. My brother calls me Nat. Most people call me Nat. And it's really funny because I actually don't like when people who don't know me call me Nat. So like sometimes like my god sister, she used to always do this. She'd introduce me to people. She'd be like, hey, this is Nat. And like, I'd be like, Talee, because then people would start calling me Nat. I'm like, I don't know you people. Don't call me Nat.
Don't get all familiar with me. Come on now.
Yeah, no, I did not enjoy that. I think most of my coworkers call me Natalie, but it's okay. I go by Nat. I go by both. I accept it now a little bit more. You also have some things going on with your name, right? Because your name is actually spelled like Stephen Curry, but it's pronounced Stephen, which is a normal way to spell Stephen. It's not like it's not normal, but you think because of Stephen Curry, it's changed the way people look at that name?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I remember as a kid whenever like a substitute teacher would read off roll call, they would go Stephen, and I'd be like, Steve, and it would always annoy me, but because Steven was actually spelled with a PH by a lot of people back then.
Yeah.
And then Steph comes around, Stephen Curry, and then it's over. So whenever anyone sees my full name, it's always Stephen. I don't even correct him, because usually it's like some sort of technical thing, like a credit card person or somebody with a business. I'm like, yeah, whatever, Stefan, whatever. Let's get down to business on this phone call that I don't really want to be on. So yeah, everyone calls me Steve. No one's called me Steven since I was a little kid. But
okay.
Yeah. When Stephen Curry came around, pretty much just ruined it for all of us Stevens with a PH.
And when you went by Steve, though, it was always Steve, right? So you always Okay. So I know, it's funny. I dated two Steffens in my life. That's very weird to date. I think, if it was like Michael or like Chris or something like that, but I don't think Stephen.
That explains a lot.
Pronounced Stephen is that common, right?
It explains a lot about your fanship, I guess.
But one of them did spell it like Stephen Curry. The other one spells it like with two F's in there. So, but I'd always it's funny because when I was growing up, like if you saw the PH, most people did think that was Steven. So I'm surprised you had so many problems growing up. I do think that Stephen Curry probably has normalized that spelling to be Stephen a little bit more.
Absolutely.
But I don't think before that was the norm at all.
No, I don't think so either. I think there was a guy in my school that was Stefan, Stefan.
Yeah.
So but there was no Stephens that I ever saw anywhere in my life until Stephen Curry, and then now everyone pronounces it the way that my substitute teachers would. That would drive me crazy as a kid because the weirdest stuff drives you crazy when you're a kid.
Of
Like
course.
say my name right, So
I hate that there are
whatever.
still some people that will call Stefan. Like it annoys me. Um, and I think that's what Nike did, right? That was part of the whole thing with the presentation. Aside from having Kevin Durant's name on there, I believe they were pronouncing his name in there as like Stefan. I'm just like, how the fuck do you do that with one of your athletes? I mean, it's just insane to me. Or if they weren't pronouncing it like that, they spelled it like that, but they were doing it like Stefan and not Stefan.
Yeah, I think they spelled it wrong, but I can't remember. I have to go back and read that one. But yeah, Stefan, I think of as wasn't that Urkel's alter ego?
Yes.
Was
Yes.
yeah, when he was cool, he was
Yes.
Stefan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Steve Urkel, the character on Family Matters, people, not Urkel on Twitter.
Yeah, not the guy who's the king of spaces. We're not talking about him. No, we're talking about the TGIF show with Urkel and Eddie and Carl Winslow as the cop. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Stefan was the fine Urkel. He wasn't Urkel anymore. He turned into like this fine guy, and
he was suave and could dance and charm the ladies. Yeah.
TV was so ridiculous back in the days, and yet still so wonderful.
Yes.
And I feel like you have a sense of like who is like a Steph fan, like when you hear the way they say it, because I feel like Warriors fans and like we're always like Steph. We don't even call him Stephen really, although I know Aisha calls him Stephen and his mother. But like the fans, we're all like, he's like known to us as like Steph. So it's weird. Like when I hear people on the broadcast and they're like Curry, it feels so unfamiliar to me. I feel like they're talking about a stranger. I know it's like odd, but I'm just like, nah, man, y'all gotta call him Steph.
Yeah, I remember watching the match when he was on with Chuck and Phil Mickelson, and I watched pretty much the entire broadcast, and they kept saying, and Stephen Curry with on his second shot, 5-iron, like they kept saying Stephen the entire time. And I was like, I've never heard him called Stephen this many times. And like Fitz will call him Stephen every once in a while, but generally it's very occasional. But yeah, it was weird to hear a whole broadcast where it's just Stephen, and you could tell it was almost like it was for golf. It was like, okay, well, it's formal time. He's Stephen Curry on the golf course.
I know the Bay Area Warriors fans. He's known to us as Steph.
Oh yeah.
But that's why I think it's really interesting that Aisha and his mother always say his full name. I know sometimes like when I get mad, and I'll like debate him with people like in sports. Like I had this one friend I would always debate with because he was like a big Katie person, and I was right. So we used to have like a lot of like debates, and I was just like something. I was like, listen, you will not talk about Stefan like this. So I don't remember what I said. He's like, Stefan, like what are you like on a first name, like you're best friends with this guy? I was like, listen, that's like I don't know him at all. I've never met the man a day in my life, but I will defend him like he's my family. Do you understand me?
Yep. You're mad when you drop a Stephen Wardell Curry.
Yes. I tell you, I love being a fan. I love things that can't be explained. It's like there's few things in this world that get us like worked up like this. I think sports is one of them. Religion, politics, right? I mean, there are some others, but like sports should be fun, and yeah, it can just be so divisive.
Best rappers.
Yes, music is definitely one of them. I have a lot of followers, obviously from the Bay Area, but when it comes to like rap music, they all think I'm biased and my New York bias kicks in. Probably does, I know how people view New Yorkers. Oh, well.
I'm one of those rare people who likes from both sides of the country, I mean, and South too. Like, I don't know. I grew up listening to a ton of New York rap. I mean, but I like Bay Area rap too, but I understand like New York people listen to Bay Area rap and it's so kind of different and weird compared to what they're used to with like the technical rap skills and the beats precise. Sometimes the beats are kind of dirty, but like, then you listen to stuff that's here and you're like, what the hell is even E40 saying? Or what is this whole Mac Dre thing? Like, why do you guys care about him so much? So I get it, but when you grow up, around that culture, it seems like, a language here that we all
Right.
understand.
And I get it. I mean, I get loving like your local stuff because I lived in South Florida for a number of years, and Florida had like its own like Luke and like that
Yep.
whole like booty, like we had like our
Cincinnati.
own, yeah. And like when I would come back to New York and I'd be like, y'all don't want to know how I used to act and dance to that music, but when I used to be doing that, my friends from New York would be like, what the fuck is this, yo? Like, what are you listening to? So I understand like that local love for your, and I get it. I respect it. But like, honestly, E40, like those guys that wasn't music being bumped where I was from. That wasn't playing in my area. So
I wouldn't expect that.
I
Yeah.
didn't know it, and so it is what it is. We all have our biases. When it comes to rap and hip hop and music, I'm gonna always hold it down for New York, but definitely have a lot of love for the Bay Area team, Oakland, because I know the Warriors are Oakland's team, and I will always show love and respect
Absolutely.
for that area. So like I always tell Warriors fans, thank you for embracing me, accepting me. I love this team. I love the people I've met from there, and I will be out there this year for the parade. I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be there.
There you
If
go.
I gotta be masked up with oxygen all around me, I'm gonna be.
Don't worry, it's the Bay Area. People will also be wearing masks around you.
Yeah, because I've gone to a lot of Warrior playoff games, and I've been to Warriors finals. All the finals for the most part, right outside of Toronto, they all used to be versus the Cavs. So
Yeah.
I used to actually go to Cleveland because it was cheaper. I just can't do that anymore. I cannot force myself to be around the Cleveland fans anymore. But I never ever made it to the parades. And after like 2 years in this hiatus, I'm like, you know what? That's part of the reason, for my own selfish reasons, I'm playing for finals versus Brooklyn, because it would be very easy for me to go to the games here in Brooklyn.
That'd be perfect for you.
And then I'd come to the parade. So that's what I'm like hoping for. But I will be out there definitely. And I will make it out there for, I think, a postseason game. I got to see how it all shakes out.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? I'm sure everyone will welcome you if that does end up occurring. I'm not gonna jinx it for all the fans listening.
No.
Yeah, but yeah, if it does happen, I do expect to see you here.
Yeah, of course. I'm just a big believer in like speaking things into existence you want to happen. So that's what I'm hoping for. They still got to get the job done. We're still hoping for no injuries, but barring injuries, and if the Warriors keep playing like this, I like them. They're my pick to take it, to win it all.
To be honest, it's actually my pick as well. I mean, it's I as somebody who's like in the media, it's not something where I can just wear my fan flag, swing it around or put it on my car or whatever like people do around here during playoff time. But just watching them this year, it does seem like, especially I think when I kept bringing it up on our last pod, the December game, the Christmas game against the Suns. Watching that, I was like, okay, yep, I can see this happening now.
Yeah. And Vegas really hasn't swayed. I mean, before the season started, it was a little bit different. But now that the Warriors have been in front, like even when they like lose a couple of games, they haven't swayed from the Warriors being the pick. They haven't swayed from Stephen Curry being the MVP pick. They haven't, I always say Vegas is a very good indicator to follow. People follow all these other things, but I'm like, pay attention to Vegas, people.
Well, it also shows too, I mean, Vegas is all about setting the line so that there's equal money on both sides, so the casino doesn't get messed up one way or the other. They don't get taken advantage of. And the Warriors now are a global team. They're a national team, a global team, sort of like, the teams like the Lakers and the Cowboys, the Yankees. Those teams, like, they'll have odds that are a little bit tougher to get money off of because so many people will bet on them regardless of how good they are. The Warriors have entered that echelon. So now that they actually are good, even if they stumble and have something happen to them, there's enough people who will throw Warriors money onto stuff that they're gonna keep them there regardless. Also, I think the sharps know in Vegas that the Warriors are a deep team with a bunch of talent, and why would you bet against them at this point? I mean, at full strength, they've gone to the finals 5 straight years in a row, and so
right.
Why would that change this year?
The brands and how big they got is like really huge, because I do think that like some Lakers fans are like struggling with that a little bit. They want to keep trying to like little brother Warriors fans and talk about it, but like they've made it. Like this is real. They're a global brand now. They're huge and they are up there with those teams and those conversations. So there's no more like, oh, you're the little brothers, and there's no more like, even when Steph is gone, like this is a brand now. Like I can bet you're gonna still have Warriors fans, people sticking around. Like the Warriors are a thing now. I see people in New York walking around wearing Warriors t-shirts. So it's a very, I love it. I'm happy. I'm just so proud of like what Steph has done for the brand.
I mean, if you, I went to Europe a few times back in the day, and you'd see like people wearing Jordan stuff everywhere, Yankees hats everywhere, some Magic Johnson stuff, some Kobe stuff, that kind of thing. I'm sure I haven't gone international in a while, and God, with COVID, who the hell knows when I'm going to travel internationally again? But I'm sure that if you went to Europe, Africa, Asia, especially in China, that you'd see Warrior stuff all over the place, and that
Yeah.
that really is a tell of
They said he's
that.
bigger than Kobe over there or at the same levels of Kobe, which is extraordinary.
I bet. I mean, I'm not really surprised, especially the fact that now it's easier to sort of access everything than it was back when Kobe was in his prime in the early to mid 2000s. Now you can find a way to watch games. You can see every highlight that you want to on social media. So, yeah, I mean, plus also Curry's got that magnetism we talked about in the last pod.
Right. So we were talking about All-Star before we started recording and just
Yep.
about, I mean, do you think the Warriors are going to get to 3 All-Stars? Let's start there. Do you think they're going to get 3?
I think they'll get 3. I think that Steph and Andrew and Draymond will all make it. The only question to me is if they get 2 starters. They're not
Right.
going to get 3 starters. They're not going to get Wiggins and Draymond as
Right.
2 of the 3 starting front court guys. But I think there's a decent chance, just looking at the first returns, that they're going to get 2 starters. I mean, Wiggins is only in that last return was only 140,000 behind Paul George, and Paul George hasn't been playing.
Right.
So, and Paul George plays for the Clippers, which, as we are just talking about with which teams have a global brand. Clippers are not a global brand. If the Lakers want to have a little brother to poke fun at, the Clippers are still that team because they own crypto.com arena, formerly Staples Center. But yeah, Paul George kind of maybe a little out of sight, out of mind right now. I mean, I think fans who are casual to the point of not watching the games this last month will still go, oh yeah, Paul George. But it's with him not being able to play, and maybe not being able to play for a while, and Wiggins being on one of the top 2 teams in the league, maybe the best team in the league, I see him jumping everyone. Clay, I think he's too far back of Luka to hop over Ja and Luka to get that
I
second guard
agree.
spot.
I also
And
think
that's
that
probably a good thing,
it
to be
is. And
honest.
I think that when people saw the results with Luca and Ja, a lot of people, at least from what I was seeing, don't think that Luca should be a starter. So a lot of people are like, okay, I'm going to now throw my votes behind Ja, because sometimes people see the voting, they're voting for their
Yeah.
guy. And then once you kind of see where they're shaking out, you're like, okay, well, I don't want this person. Right. So it becomes like a strategy. So I have heard a lot of people say like, oh, now I'm voting for Ja. And I mean, I too started voting for Ja. Like after he came back and watching him a few games, I was like, because I was actually conflicted with who my second vote should go to. Like, so when the Warriors would tweet Clay, I would vote for him because I mean he's Clay, he's my guy. But like in general, like I was like, okay, Clay's not gonna win, so it's okay if I toss him a few votes. But I was really conflicted about who the second guard should be because I'm just like, I know Luka's gonna get a lot of votes, but I don't think he's really deserving of getting a starting spot this year. Who would the other people who would normally be in their Dame? No, definitely
No.
not this year. Right. And so people were like going to Booker and they were going to Mitchell. And I was like, look, I know those guys should and will probably make it, but I didn't feel like any of them were having like these great, performances or anything like that. And so I think with Ja being out, he kind of fell off my radar for a little bit. But then when he came back and I'm like, no, it's definitely Ja. Ja deserves that second starting spot. So he's been getting a lot of my votes too.
I don't think you could tell the story of the first half of the season without telling about the Grizzlies and Ja. And so And actually too, one of the funny things to me about the All-Star, it's like it's just the first half. It's not about the full season. So I kind of like to look back a little bit at the previous season and see what was going on, because it's a year by year sort of award for all of these players.
Yeah.
And John Morant, I mean, we saw firsthand when they played the Warriors, he was unstoppable, in that playing
Yeah.
game, and that was a big deal. I mean, the Grizzlies were thought to be a definite lottery team going into last season, 2-3 years away. And they made a huge statement against the Warriors. Obviously, the Warriors kind of made their own mistakes, many of them, to let the Grizzlies win that game. But the Grizzlies took it, and Ja took it from them. And yeah, I mean, this story, Luka, obviously a very talented player, didn't come into the season in shape. Ja Morant, on the other hand, is making plays that are just absolutely ridiculous on a nightly basis. And the Grizzlies are winning 2 out of every 3 games. They're a better team than the Mavericks. So I would say that, and Ja also, who would you
They
rather
have a
see?
chance to be in the 3rd spot in the West.
And
You're
I also
right there.
they're right there. And also I kind of think about stuff like, who would be more entertaining to watch in an All-Star game?
People do think
And
about that, which hurts Draymond.
which hurts Draymond, but Luka, okay, Luka kind of does his Luka things, kind of dribbles around, does a little step back, he can make some fun passes or whatever. Ja Morant, if he gets his first start in an All-Star game, is going to go absolutely crazy.
He's definitely the kind of player you want in an All-Star game. Absolutely.
Like Russ would go in the All-Star game and just be like insane, just running full speed, dunking on everybody. Ja would do the exact same thing. He would have no chill whatsoever in an All-Star game.
Yeah, I agree. I saw an article that came out today, and I'm not sure if you can talk about it, but because I think it was from like The Athletic. I think Hollinger might have been on it. They just went through like who their all-star picks would be. But the one that I thought was most interesting was like they had Anthony Davis making it as a reserve. And I was like, the Lakers don't deserve more than one all-star. Like they're in the 7th spot. They have a 500 record. At some points, they've been below 500. And now Anthony Davis is out. Like, why? And they had Andrew Wiggins as one of the people who they considered, but didn't make it. And I'm like, I for sure think that Andrew Wiggins deserves a spot over Anthony Davis if you're going to talk about reserves.
Yeah, I mean, talk about production this season, absolutely. And then last season, too. I mean, Anthony Davis was in and out of the lineup the entire time. And I think that was a big reason why the Lakers fell short too. So yeah, I would definitely say Anthony Davis. I mean, also another one too. I mean, is the All-Star game really going to be missing out without Anthony Davis? I mean, I don't think people really think of Andrew Wiggins as the most exciting player ever, but he's starting to actually throw down some dunks that I kind of was wondering if he had in the bag, because that was one of the things with me watching Andrew over the years. Like, this guy, I know he jumped 42 inches off 2 feet. So he's got it in him to.
He has the capability to be more
dunks.
exciting and do more. But
yeah, and then we saw it against the Timberwolves when he had 2 ridiculous. I mean, he took Karl Anthony Towns' life, his buddy's life, on that one, and but he's been doing it since then. I mean, he's once every couple games he does. It's not always a dunk too. Sometimes it's just a super hang time, shifty layup off of that sort of spin move he does. But I think he would actually be a sort of under the radar fun guy to watch. Anthony Davis is a guy who's going to like go to an All-Star game and get 30 points and 10 rebounds, and you won't remember a single one of them.
Right. And I mean, I just feel like Andrew's earned it over him. His impact on like the team, I know that Anthony Davis is obviously a great defender, and I know that his numbers wise, he's still putting up all-star numbers, but sure, I don't think anyone will dispute that his impact for the Lakers this year just hasn't been the same, and so when you combine that with him being out, I don't even see why people would be bringing him up, like at least with someone like a Paul George, if he still made it, like I think the missed games hurt him the most, but at least you could say like, look, what he was doing with the Clippers was like great, he was leading that team without Kawhi, and I just don't like, the Lakers were losing when LeBron James, I mean, they're still losing, but Anthony Davis was there, and Russ was there and they couldn't even beat OKC. Like what what is he being an all-star for? And I know some people don't think you should take this stuff into account for all-star. They think it's more relevant for all NBA, but I think like when you're getting to players that where it's close, I think these are the times you start to consider those factors. And by the raw numbers, yes, Anthony Davis is an all-star, but when you consider the team and all the other things in the equation, I feel like Andrew easily should take that spot over him.
When you're one of the best teams in the league, you should get at least 2 All-Stars. So
right.
I think Draymond will make the team easily because he's probably going to win Defensive Player of the Year this year.
Right.
Although not great news heading into our pod about Draymond and his calf. He's probably going to miss the whole. He's going to miss the whole road trip. So but regardless, he'll be an All-Star. But I do think Wiggins. I think there's been enough buzz that there's a better than 50-50 chance he gets in, but if he doesn't, I wouldn't be totally shocked.
Yeah, I mean, I would just be upset if I see, because I don't think besides the Suns, Bulls, and that's the East anyway. So just keeping it in the West, besides the Suns, and arguably Utah, I don't think another team belongs with 2 All-Stars. That's my opinion. I don't think that any team like warrants that or deserves that. So like if Andrew isn't going to make it, fine, but I don't want to see any other teams outside of those with 2 All-Stars, right? Like that's how I feel about it. And if they are, then I'm going to be upset about Andrew not making it, because why are we rewarding people who are like sub 500 records or, coming into this vote? I don't think people are going to make the case anymore, but coming into the vote, people were really pushing for DeJounte Murray. And as great as he has been, like the Spurs, I think, are in 10th and have a sub 500 record. Why are we rewarding them with the All-Star, but Andrew Wiggins isn't getting one? That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I think so too. It's I don't think that the All-Star game would really be losing something without DeJounte Murray. It's not like he's been good, but he's not been the guy where like he's just taken over the league and fans are clamoring to see him there. So I mean, not that fans besides Warriors fans or people in Canada are clamoring to see Wiggins either, but
you reward winning. You reward winning.
Exactly. I mean, Phoenix, they'll get Book and they'll get Paul for sure, and they should. Utah will probably get Donovan and Gobert, right? Other than that, I agree. Like, do you need 2 guys from Memphis, Dallas, Denver, Lakers, Minnesota, Clippers, Portland? I mean, is Dame going to get in?
He should not. He should not.
I don't think he should. I mean,
no, Portland should have no All-Stars this year, and so that's what I'm saying.
I don't think he's going to get in. He's 8th in the voting, in the last return, so he's not going to get the starting nod. So he shouldn't get a reserve nod either. So it's an interesting year this year. It's I think Memphis is a fun team just because it's kind of showing a little bit how the league's changing over the last year or so, where a lot of teams and stars that have sort of been thought of as perennial all-stars, they'll always make it no matter what. And teams that'll always be in the mix no matter what it's kind of shifting a little bit. Memphis is kind of turning things on its head a little bit. The Warriors too, because I think a lot of people didn't expect the Warriors to be this good this soon, which is I think why the Warriors and the Suns already have played 3 times. I think if the league knew the Warriors would be as good as they are, it wouldn't have been like that,
right?
Yeah, they'd be playing games in March and April, not in November.
Which is just more evidence and proof that I need a job that is like paying me and not these people, because like if they would have been listening to me, they would have known the Warriors were going to be good.
Well, let's keep working that. You never know.
Yeah, no, I agree with the scheduling. I think you're spot on. That's definitely why they had all those games in the beginning. And, of course, they spread out the Lakers games, and the Lakers have not. I mean, those games will still get high ratings because it's LeBron and Steph. But I mean, the Lakers just are not very good. Like, and someone asked this question today on Twitter, and I ask this all the time. How long are we going to keep excusing these contenders when they're losing? You saw Brooklyn just lost again last night to the Blazers, and actually the Bucks lost last night too. The Bucks are a little flying under the radar because I think they've lost like 3 of their last 4 or 4 of their last, something like that.
They lost on the road to Charlotte, though, and the Warriors know that's a tough game right now. Losing on the road to Charlotte. I don't give the Bucks too much of a hard time.
But they lost to Charlotte, 2 times, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, but in the game where the Warriors lost to Charlotte, every game that we've lost outside of New Orleans, where Steph just didn't play, right? And was still a winnable game for us, right? Outside of that game, all the other games that we lost, for the most part, were close. They were close, except for one. And they were with Steph playing abysmal, shooting abysmal, playing abysmal. Like, that's what it took for it to be a very close game, right? That they lost. But versus the Hornets, Giannis played well.
Yeah.
And all 3 of their guys were there. It's also noted that for most of those games where we lost, Clay wasn't even playing in those games, right? So that's why I'm kind of like.
Well, the Bucks didn't have Holiday. Drew's a big part of that.
Which one?
Yeah, they didn't have Drew Holiday or Chris Middleton last night.
Okay.
The Bucks. Oh no, they did have Middleton. They just didn't have Holiday. Sorry.
Okay. But they had 2.
Yeah, Holiday was on COVID, and then after that, I think he had a hurt ankle. So he's like sort of day-to-day kind of deal, not a serious injury, but
I feel like they are a team that has lost some games that it's gone unnoticed, maybe because they were last year's champions. That's fine. I don't care about the Bucks. I'll worry about them when we play them. But Brooklyn and the Lakers, those teams, they're not beating any top teams, and people keep talking about them like they're contenders. I don't understand why.
Losing to the Blazers is bad, even if it's in Portland, right? That's a bad loss. Even without Harden, Kyrie's back. They should be winning that game pretty easily. I mean,
and the Nets haven't beaten any of the top teams in the East or West. None of them.
If you can't beat the Blazers without CJ and Dame, then you're either in trouble or you just didn't give a shit about that.
But game. I don't even care about the Blazers, right? Because like if you're a contender, you have to be able to contend with the top teams. They've lost to the Grizzlies. They've lost to the Warriors. They've lost to the Suns. They've lost to the Bulls twice. They lost to, I believe, the Bucks. All those other teams. I think the only one, if you consider them a top team, the Sixers, and I don't know that we would, they split with the Sixers. Everyone else, they've lost to. They haven't beaten any of those teams.
I got a question for you, because this, I think a lot of people on the West Coast kind of wonder this because we're not out there. You live in Brooklyn, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't live in Brooklyn, but I live in New York. Yeah.
Right. So the Nets, like, does anyone care about the Nets in New York? I mean, or is it like, because the feeling here is that like the Nets are sort of like the Clippers in LA, where no one cares and it's all Knicks, just like it's all Lakers in LA. But is there a pocket of Nets fans that like we just don't know about over here on this side of the country?
No, I think that's accurate. I mean, there are some people who like the Nets. And you got to remember too, the Nets were like in New Jersey for a long time. Yep. So I think a lot of the Nets fans are like in New Jersey. I think it's going to take time. Like Brooklyn is a borough that they carry a lot of pride. And it's similar to the way like people in Oakland have a lot of pride for Oakland, you know?
Sure.
So Brooklyn is like one of those places. It's like people from Brooklyn, like if they go somewhere, it doesn't matter where they go, in New York, out of New York, out the country, you ask them where they're from, they're gonna say, I'm from Brooklyn. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you people? Like, this is how people from Brooklyn are, and they represent. So they have like a great sense of pride in their borough and like the things that represent Brooklyn, right? But a lot of the people in Brooklyn have already grown up New York Knicks fans, right? So I think it's going to take some time for like the generations to like, you know, latch on to Brooklyn and be like, that's my team. So do I think eventually that they can be like a better fan base? Sure. It's going to be hard, I think, to ever catch the Knicks, only because unless they like do something remarkable, like start winning some chips, get like, you know, one of those transcendent kind of generational players, because like, even though Kevin Durant is playing on the team, he doesn't have that same kind of draw. He also wasn't like drafted and you know, so it's different. So I think it's just gonna take some time. I think probably the kids growing up now in Brooklyn like that team, but no, they
Yeah.
are like the little brother to like the Knicks. This is still a Knicks town. It's still all about the Knicks. And so, if there is a borough to put them in, it's definitely Brooklyn. That's the right one. And
Mhm.
I joke a lot. I'm like, Brooklyn doesn't deserve this fucking team. They can't, they let people come in and take over and then chant for MVPs for other players. And I'm like, Brooklyn does not deserve this because that borough, they go hard. Like most of my friends are from Brooklyn. A lot of my family's from Brooklyn. I spend a lot of my time in Brooklyn, like I hang out in Brooklyn all the time. Brooklyn is everything. Brooklyn is where everything at. There's so much culture. There's so much everything. So they deserve a team. I hate this team for them right now, because I've been going to Nets games for a long time. I always used to. I didn't this right now because of COVID, but I normally purchase like mini game plans.
Mhm.
So like they consider you like a partial kind of season ticket holder, so I would always go and I would like buy plans for the teams that I want to see, like the Warriors and then anyone else I wanted to see. And it's always like that, like you can go over there, take over their building, say what you want, like whatever, like they're just, and then like their entertainment isn't good, like their hosts, like they just still haven't found their identity yet.
So they are the Clippers, because yeah, I remember I covered some Warriors Clippers games back in the day when they would go against each other in the early 2010s, and it was just funny because like I've been to a Lakers game at Staples and it's like a totally different kind of atmosphere.
Yeah.
Clippers, all the lights are on. The Lakers have the darkened arena and then the lights on are only on the hardwood.
Right.
With the Clippers, everything's lit up. There's some guy and girl running around yelling all right, Clipper Nation, all right, Clipper Nation. And meanwhile, like 60% of the fans were Warriors fans when I'd be at these playoff games. So it was kind of the same deal. I mean, I don't know. LA's got that kind of issue though too. Like they love their Lakers, Dodgers. Used to be USC Trojans that might come back, but that they've fallen off. But Clippers, now the Rams are back in town, the Chargers. I mean, the 49ers just played the Rams in last week of the regular season. It was like 60-70% Niners fans in there, to the point where Rams quarterback Matt Stafford was like, we really couldn't hear our line calls. It was a really tough game, tough atmosphere. And it was in their own damn stadium.
That's
So
wild.
yeah,
That's
I mean,
wild.
when you're in a big city like New York or LA and you're not one of the legacy teams, you have a tough hill to climb.
They do. And I mean, I think that's why it's a good thing for the Clippers that they are getting their own arena that they're going to own. I mean, Ballmer, that's his name, right? He's
Steve Ballmer.
He's doing, I think, a great job. And I think in time, I don't think the Lakers can little brother the Clippers as much as they used to, but they're still definitely the preeminent team right over there. And so it is what it is. And yeah, it's like that in New York too. So people are not far off. Yeah. And it's unfortunate because the Barclays is an amazing arena. The food is delicious and amazing in there. All the things I've been hearing about Chase, it probably sounds similar, because it's a newer building. So
right.
The food options are great. It's kind of a steep building. So it's one of the places that I don't think, like, if you're sitting above the first level, I don't think I would enjoy the experience because it's New York. So in New York, we build up, right? We don't have the space to build wide. And so but it's a nice arena. It's very nice. I love the food. I don't really eat that much in arenas. It's a place that I'll go and like, no, I'm not going to eat before I go because I want to get food at the Barclays. Like it's really nice. So it'll be great when they get their identity and they can like catch up. But yeah, they're not there yet.
Well, we'll see. The finals run might change things a little bit, but probably it would take like a championship or two to really get people to sway. And well, no one's going to stop rooting for the Knicks over there. That's for sure.
No. And I want the Nets so badly. That's who I want us to like go against. I mean, right now they're not looking that great though. I mean, and I still don't see how they're going to do this. Kyrie only plays, away games. It just seems like not a great recipe for like team cohesion. So
or playoff success.
Yeah, I don't see it, but and I was definitely one of the people like, okay, great, Kyrie's going to be out. Not great like he's out, but like, who cares? They still have Kevin Durant and James Harden. Like, this should still be a contending team. I didn't expect to see them struggling so much. And so I don't know who that's an indictment of, because like, you should be able to, like you said, you should definitely be able to beat the Blazers, but like, you guys should be able to win some of these games. Like, you should not be losing. They lost to the freaking Clippers with nobody on the squad. Like, Paul George is out, everybody's out, and they lost. I mean, it's just, I don't know what's going on over there in Brooklyn, but they're definitely struggling. So
I mean, Durant's putting up numbers, but I could see, just knowing him and kind of the way he is and how he feels things, that this has probably been a tough year for him, just to constantly have to deal with all the questions about Kyrie, to him probably worrying about when they're going to get Kyrie back, all that kind of stuff, wondering if he made the right decision. I'm sure he's going back and forth in his mind.
do you think
Just,
so?
oh yeah, I mean, he's a guy who overthinks. You can tell. I mean, he's not somebody who just
But I
is
just
like,
feel like that decision is like one he does not regret. Like, I do not think he wanted to be on the Warriors anymore.
well, I know he didn't want to be on the Warriors, but he thought the Knicks weren't cool. And now, I mean, I'm sure he believes in his heart that they're going to win the title, that he's got, he probably thinks that they have the three best players in the league, just the way he probably thinks that they're going to cruise at some point. But the whole Kyrie thing, I'm just guessing, has been weighing on him a little bit. He says it's not. He's saying all the right things, but how could it not? It's just been such a weird deal. So, I don't know.
Right. Well, the thing about it is like, and who I'm the last person that would defend KD, but I think that in fairness to him, like, obviously no one could predict the global pandemic, right? I mean,
Right.
I think Kyrie perhaps giving problems throughout the season is something you can predict, even if it's not based on a global pandemic, right? But
Yeah.
you also maybe couldn't predict that like James Harden would have like such a steep decline. I don't know if it's a decline. Yeah, I said I need to see for the whole year what happens, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I don't think his gamble was so crazy, because I used to always say, like, if he's gonna pick a team, go to the Nets. To me, it's a better legacy move, because if you bring a championship to the Nets, right, and they're the little brother franchise, and that's gonna be a huge boost for your legacy. There definitely won't be any questions anymore of like, oh, you had to go to the Warriors to do it, right? It's a star-studded team. I thought that like, and at the time, we still questioned, because that was before the Knicks made like their off-season moves, right? And so we questioned like their management and like if that's the best franchise to be in. So I mean, I think if I look back in history at the time when Kevin Durant had to make his decisions, I don't think any of them were like crazy decisions. I get that a lot of Dubs fans feel like it was the worst decision, and why would you leave like Steph for Kyrie and blah, 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 blah. But like, I'm also like, people deserve to go and be where they're happy. And so what he did is he said, I want to play with my friends, and that's fine. That's his choice. But he also wanted to give himself a chance to win. And I think a team with James Harden and Kyrie Irving is giving yourself a chance to win,
especially in the East, you'd think.
And the fact that it's not working out, like, it's just not working out. But like, I definitely don't look at the decision like it was like that bizarre,
The thing is, though, is that like we were questioning a lot of things about the Nets last year too, and they end up like, if they were fully healthy, if Kyrie was healthy, then they would have made it to the finals.
Right. I think most of us believe that. Yeah.
They almost beat the Bucks anyway. So I still think they're the favorites out of the East. I mean, I think the Bucks are right there, and I think the Sixers with the right Ben Simmons trade could sneak in there a little bit. And the Bulls are interesting, but I don't see them as a finals team.
Why is that? Why do people feel like that about the Bulls? I mean, you can't speak for everyone, but why do you feel like that?
I don't think they have the defensive overall team skill to overcome I think their offense is good, but not enough to overcome their defense. I think the Nets offense is so good that even if their defense is kind of questionable, they could still run over all the teams in the East. I don't know if they could take out the top team that comes out of the West with their defense, but You got to play defense to win the finals. I can see the Sixers having a championship quality defense. I know the Bucks can play championship quality
What about
defense.
the Heat if healthy?
If healthy, yes. I mean, the Heat are an interesting team, especially. I mean, but Bam's going to be out for weeks and weeks. There's some, like you said, if healthy. That's an interesting team. They could sneak in if other teams have injuries, but I don't see them as a juggernaut either. I still see the Nets as like the prohibitive favorite as long as everyone's healthy. And by the time that the playoffs roll around, New York relaxes their vaccine stuff, like Omicron. This is like best case scenario. Omicron kind of dies down. Everyone realizes that everything is kind of getting better. They kind of relax the vaccine stuff. Or Kyrie even decides to get the vaccine, but I doubt that'll happen. And if he could play throughout the playoffs and they're all healthy, then sure. But the chances of Harden in his current physical state being healthy the whole time, the chances of Kyrie staying healthy if he's playing all the time are never good. So I don't know. The if healthy thing goes for pretty much all these teams, including the Bucks.
But for some teams, it's like more concerning than the others.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think the Bulls, I could be wrong on the Bulls. I don't see it quite yet. Maybe talk to me in 2 months and maybe I'll change my tune.
I hear you. And so speaking of injuries, Draymond has this calf injury that kind of felt like it was sprung on us on Clay Day. He was getting ready to play the game. And then all of a sudden reports started coming out that Dray wasn't playing. Have you heard anything? Like, are they being overly cautious? Are they scared because of like the region? And, I don't know. It makes me nervous. Like I thought, okay, he was sitting out that last game. And then like, when I heard he wasn't they're saying he could join later in the road trip, but they're also saying he may not. So like, I'm fine. They got to play without Dray. They got to play without Dray. But like long-term, is this something that like they need to be worried about?
I don't know about long-term because I think that they're going to be as cautious as possible and they'll take a couple losses here and there in January if it means making sure that Draymond doesn't have this linger throughout the season and re-aggravate it later on. The thing that worried me in terms of just, in Draymond's condition really was, because, obviously the injury happened during warmups because he was in the starting lineup and all of a sudden
it was during warmups. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, because he was in the starting lineup and then he warmed up and then he was taken out. He was scratched for the game except for, the ceremonial tip off but what kind of told me that things weren't probably that great was, remember when the tip went to the Cavs, Garland had the ball in the backcourt, and so Draymond went over to foul him. He hobbled over there not looking good. Like he barely could move over to get to Garland to put his hands on him for that foul to get out of the game. Right. It wasn't like he just sort of trotted over and then all right, I'm out. See you later, Clay. Good luck, buddy. Like he moved over there like he was in pain. I was like, oh, I think that's a not serious injury,
but a real injury.
It's a real injury. So I wasn't that optimistic that he was going to be able to play the next game at least. But it sounds like if he's not going on the road trip, then that he might come during the end part of the road trip. Maybe there's a chance he makes it out there for the fourth game against Minnesota, but my guess is that they're going to rest him the entire time and then bring him back sometime during the homestand because you don't mess with it. I mean,
no, you don't. And I think we all have a little PTSD with KD and like these kinds of injuries, in the calf region. So, yeah, I didn't
even think about that. I just figured, because I've injured my calf before in an area that's like higher up than my Achilles, and I didn't even think about my Achilles, but it still hurt like hell, right? Ran without stretching first, and then kept running on it, and then next thing I know, I'm like hobbling home, and that had nothing to do with my Achilles. KD's was like definitely a lower calf injury, which meant it kind of was an Achilles injury that they weren't really telling us about. Because
do we know where Dray's is, the region of his is?
We don't. So I'm not gonna. So I can't really assume. I don't know. I mean, the fact that he's working with Rick Celebrini, the trainer, and trying to get treatment and stuff. I mean, I don't really know what kind of treatment you can give besides rest. I mean, maybe they just have some sort of targeted massage that they could do or whatever, or to put extra blood flow through it. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. But it definitely did worry me a little bit in terms of Draymond's upcoming status. Just watching him sort of hobble over like an old man to put his arms on Garland, I was like, oh yeah, he's actually hurt.
Okay. Yeah, no, I saw it too. And so just, hoping for the best for Dray, because like we definitely need him. Um, and I guess you could argue, even though it's going to be 20 minutes a night, we got Clay back right at the right time. Because I mean, again, the defense holds up without Dre, so they'll still play good defense, but they're definitely going to need some help on offense. Because normally, when the offense is struggling, they can just turn to their defense and rely on that. But like, if you're not going to have Dre, then your offense definitely has to tighten up some and be better. So
Yeah, and I think it means that you're probably going to get more time in the court for Andre, which is what you saw against the Cavs. He played 24 minutes, which was more than
more
anyone else on the
Kuminga
bench.
probably.
More Kuminga. I think that with Andre, though, it's more that secondary ball handler sort of steer everyone on offense. More than
agree.
Else.
The minutes, that's why like in the New Orleans game, I was pissed because I'm just like, I feel like if you would have just had like Andre out there with the young guys, because I know a lot of people are like, no, it's good, like give them the development. I'm like, okay, I agree with all of that, but like Belly didn't need to be out there. Like you could have had Andre out there, like just so someone who is like a better decision maker is out there with the young guys, and they would still get the development experience. But whatever, we don't need to relive that game.
that was a game. That was
my first triggering. That was the game, honestly, of all their losses so far. That was the one that pissed me off like the most. I haven't been upset about any of the other losses. And
so you were the way you were back last season when we would chat after losses and you would be venting on the phone and stuff.
Yes, and I definitely was triggered. Like I definitely was triggered by Steve Kerr's decisions and actions in that game. So we won't relive that because it's a happy week. Clay came back, so we're gonna stay with those vibes. But Dre is not the only person. Like, well, we don't know if they're gonna be out. I mean, we've been talking, so I don't know if there's been any announcements since. But Otto is questionable. GP2 is questionable. GP2 is his ankle, and I saw when that happened, and that also looks sort of real. And I don't know.
He's been dealing with that for a while.
Was Otto his shoulders? I don't remember.
I have to look.
It's something like that.
GP2 has tweaked that ankle multiple times this season, and it just played through it. So I think it's something he's going to be dealing with all season, to be honest.
Right, and he probably can play through it, but I mean, this is just a tough road stretch because like you need all those guys, and I feel like versus a team like Memphis is a team you really could use him in. Like maybe he's not as important, let's say, for like the Bucks matchup, but I think like with the Grizz, you definitely want like GP2. So I don't know. I'm hoping Otto can get in for one of these games too. I know they have to be really careful with him, so I don't know if they're gonna sit him, but because he's really good, like not just for his shooting threat, but he too sometimes will shoot the mid-range, like, which I like. He is a great rebounder. He plays solid defense. I mean, I just think Otto's a really good addition, and I really don't like it when he's not in the lineup. So I don't know.
He's been fantastic.
I don't know that he's going to be out, but I just think so. I mean, let's just talk about these two games really quickly because it's the Bulls and I don't know why I keep saying the Bulls first. It's the Bucks first and then the Bulls. And I don't know everything that's going on with Milwaukee. You said Drew's in protocols, right?
He was, and then I think he had an ankle after that. Yeah, he because he was taking off protocols, so I thought he was going to play, and then he didn't. I'll look it up here because I got him on one of my fantasy teams here. Drew was, let's see, he's left ankle soreness, so doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal. I would imagine he plays against the Warriors. Yeah, Otto is left shoulder.
I keep thinking about like if we were to actually see the Bulls in the finals, like if the Warriors make it out the West, and because I see a lot of Warriors fans like very fearful if we have to play the Bucks. They're like, who's gonna stop Giannis? And I'm always like, well, who the fuck is gonna stop Steph? Like, why do we act like all the opposing teams have a star, but like we don't? That's first. And secondly, I'm just like, you don't shut superstars down. So you don't have to worry about shutting Giannis down or containing him. You have a guy that can match Giannis's production, right?
Yep.
And so then after that, it's just like about schemes and how you do things. And um, one of the things that I think will be really critical to the Bucks is Drew, because I think that for them to actually beat the Warriors, you need Drew to be great, like on both offense and defense. Like, I don't think you can just get like great defensive games from him and all that streakiness he did last year in the postseason. I don't think it will work.
Totally.
And I feel like I could be wrong, but if Drew is going to spend a lot of his time on Steph, I think that's going to like hamper his ability to be as effective on the offensive end. Like, defending Steph is not like defending anyone else in the league. And in the past, Drew hasn't even been successful at guarding Steph. So if he's out there chasing him around all night, like how good is he really going to be on offense? So I think that's actually the key to that series. But I know everyone's focusing on Giannis, but I just, unless they're going to put someone else and not give Drew that much time on Steph, but at least that's my thinking right now, if that were to be a matchup. So we might get a glimpse at like what the Bucks are planning to do if Drew plays in this game on Thursday. But like, what do you think about the matchup?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see if Clay plays in this game, because Kerr also said that he's going to not play both games of the back-to-back. So, and they don't know which one it's going to be.
Is that what he said? They don't know which one?
Yeah. So
if I had to bet, I think it's the Bucks though that he plays.
I think so too, I would guess. And then, but well, I think
what's the harder matchup?
I think defensively, Chicago, because he'd probably have to chase around DeRozan a bit, as opposed to Middleton's a little bit off right now. DeRozan's like has flames coming out of his ears, but I think a lot of it is going to have to do not with which matchup they think is easier or harder or more important game to win or a more winnable game. I think it's going to be, how does Clay look in a second game back? How does he bounce back from the Sunday game against Memphis? If he looks great, then I think he'll probably play against Milwaukee. And then
that's really smart. Yeah, what you're saying, that makes a lot of sense, because there's a chance like Otto doesn't play tonight. So maybe Clay doesn't play that first game and you have Otto. Because I was only looking at those two games, like meaning those two, and not taking into account the Memphis game. But you're probably right that how he is after that Memphis game, because there's like a day off and then there's the next game and they got to travel. So that's a lot on the body. I was just saying like he'll probably play the first game, because I looked at it as like an Otto Clay thing. That was before hearing about Otto. So I looked at it like, because before he was like having Otto play one night and not the other. And he was kind of like reversing like him and Andre. That's what they were doing earlier in the season. But I'm like, I feel now it's going to be like an Otto Clay thing. So like on the night Otto plays, Clay won't, and vice versa when they have back-to-backs. So I was just like, Otto's going to want to play versus Chicago. Like that's his old squad. But I don't think the Warriors care too much about that. But that's what I was thinking.
My assumption is that's how it's going to go, where it'll be Clay on Clay against Memphis, obviously, and then against Milwaukee, sit against Chicago, playing against Minnesota. But I think the Warriors are definitely the point now. They're not in the playoffs. So their main whole deal is Clay and Clay's, process of getting back into game shape. So we don't know how he felt on Monday, right? Like, I mean, I'm guessing like just based off of the bounce that he had on that dunk that he's probably feeling all right, but he might have overdid himself a little bit, just not in terms of, his injuries, but just general soreness from maxing out. Because, you scrimmage, he's going to try to play as hard as he can during these scrimmages, these 5-on-5s, 3-on-3s they were doing, playing in Santa Cruz, whatever. It's nothing like an NBA game, especially your first game back with the crowd going crazy. So, and he took it to a level that I didn't really think he was going to take it to a couple times. So, especially like that dunk, right? I mean, like
he was feeling that adrenaline. He was feeling the crowd.
He was, and this is the way he landed. I was like, damn, Clay, like you you trust your body right now, which is a great sign. But they're
Very
just going to
great
monitor
sign.
Clay no matter what. So it doesn't matter if they're playing the Lakers, if they're playing the Nets, if they're playing the Suns. If Clay isn't ready to go, then Clay isn't ready to go at this point. So that's kind of where they're at with him. Obviously, I think the same thing with Draymond. It's like, all right, Draymond, like, you know what? This is the playoffs. You'll be playing all these games. But since it's not, you're going to sit at home in San Francisco with Rick Celebrini with one of those massaging guns against your calf for like a half hour, hydrate and sit in a hyperbaric chamber and do whatever the hell these guys do, the float tank,
Right.
and so it's they're all worried. They know now that they're good, and they could be like extra good to great. So it's all about May and June. They're not going to worry at all about a regular season game in January unless
I really want
everyone's
that
fully
one
healthy.
seed though. And I think deep down they do. I don't think they're chasing like a record like before, but I think that they want I think they want home court advantage throughout.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean,
Not
the
at
Suns
the
have a
risk,
good
not at the
home
risk
court right
of
now.
injuries, but I think that they really want it.
Well, you definitely don't. Yeah, you want that advantage, especially because you get to play the worst team in that first round, so you get a nice little. It's almost like a bye for yourself if you get to play one of the play-in teams and they suck, right?
Right.
So
And if you're in a 7-game series, like your role players always play better at home. You want to be at home. I hear people telling me like they don't care. I'm like, listen, guys, home court matters. Like it matters.
You want to see Belly taking shots in his 10 minutes at home as opposed to on the road.
Yeah.
It definitely, Juan Toscano Anderson, he's one of those guys where his defense will play wherever, but his offense probably is only going to play at Chase during a playoff game. GB2, who knows? We'll see. He's just a monster that he probably would be fine anywhere. But the Suns actually do now have a good home court advantage. I mean, that's a latent basketball town that was a great basketball town throughout the 90s. We're both old enough to remember those Suns teams back in the day with KJ and Chuck and
absolutely.
And then the 2000s with Nash and Marion and Stoudemire. I mean, those and we saw when the Warriors went to Phoenix, like those fans go crazy. So can the Warriors win on the road? Like, would they
can
mortgage their future to get the one seed above all else and push their guys beyond their limit? No, because they know they can win on the road. Championship teams have to. But would they rather not have to play 4 games in Phoenix? Yes.
Right. Yeah. So they're doing a delicate dance. So we have to guess a lot for these games because we don't know. But if you had to guess what they're going to come out of this road trip with the record, they play Memphis tonight. We talked about that. Guys, if you didn't catch the last episode of All Night, go back and check it out because Steve and I get a little bit more into Memphis on that episode. But they're playing Memphis, then Milwaukee, then the Bulls, and then Minnesota. So those are the 4 games before they return back home for a 7-game homestand. What do you think the record is coming out of this road trip?
If you would have asked me yesterday before the Draymond injury news came out, I would have said 3-1 because I think that they are on an upswing in terms of just mentally and physically with Clay coming back. With no Dray, I say 2-2 because I think they're going to be careful with guys regardless. And you're not going to have Clay on the back-to-back. You're not going to have Otto.
So which games do you think they're going to drop, right? I mean, I think they're going to split one of those Memphis Bulls games.
I think they're going to lose against Memphis. We'll see. This will come out after this, so I might end up being wrong. I think they might lose against Memphis and then win in Milwaukee, lose in Chicago, win in Minnesota.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted a 3-1 outcome. I'll tell you one thing, it'll be great for Steph's MVP campaign if they come out 3-1 and he plays well.
I was actually going to say a little something about that earlier on. We were talking, I was like, we're talking about the Dray injury. I'm like, this is actually setting up very nicely for Steph to kind of rise back up to his levels that he was playing in when he was player of the month. And
I mean, I think he's still in the race, but I think it has a chance to like put him back like in the because he was in the race before, but he was like leading it with everyone far behind. And like now I think it's a much closer conversation. So doing something like this when like Kevin Durant and the Nets can't beat Portland, and LeBron can't be even beating a team like Memphis after the Lakers just couldn't do it. I mean, we've beaten Memphis once already, but with them being the hottest team in the league right now and going into their home court and beating them, that would be huge. So, I mean,
it would be that's gonna be.
I would love it. I would love
fantastic
it
game.
honestly if they won the first three, and then if they lost one, it's like Minnesota, because who cares, because you've beaten the three other teams who were better. And who knows, versus Minnesota, you just might have Andrew like go off because like that's his old team and you won't even like need Steph. And he could do some stuff right this week also for his all-star campaign. So I would really like both Steph and Wiggs to be super aggressive during this trip. 2-2 is like the most decent outcome. I certainly don't want it to be losing, but I still want 3-1. So I won't want it 4-0. Shit, but you know what I mean. Like I still want it to be 3-1. 2-2 though does seem a little bit more realistic, but I'm hoping they find a way to eke out. If they could just win one of those games on the back-to-back, Chicago's gonna really want to win.
Yeah,
because
that's gonna be a tough one.
Because they lost the first game, right? And so, and I granted that they were down some guys, but they lost the first game and they got embarrassed. So they're not gonna want to lose the season series to the Warriors. And I no doubt the Bucks are gonna want to win, but when I think of Budenholzer, and he's similar to coach, like a similar coach to Kerr, like in terms of
he came out of the pop school.
Right. And so I feel like that's a game that they could, I think, and it's the first night of the back-to-back. So I just think if they're going to win one in that back-to-back, it's like go all out in Milwaukee. And then if you could get Memphis somehow tonight and then get, Minnesota before you go back home, that would be great. And if you lose to the Bulls, oh, well, you already got one off of them this year and, whatever.
3-1 road trip without Draymond the entire time or for most of it would be absolutely fantastic because this is a tough road trip.
And not having Clay for one of the games, definitely. Maybe not having some other key guys. And Clay's only limited to 20 minutes at that. It would be huge. And it would say a lot about this team. And honestly, they've been doing it all season, so they can do it. So this would be a great time for Steph to snap out of the fucking
I know I said that I don't think they're going to beat Memphis, but if they did end up beating Memphis tonight, it wouldn't surprise me because I think they do. That Memphis has got their attention, just like the Suns got their attention, and they snapped out of it against the Suns after that first loss to them.
Yeah, and I don't think Steph appreciated hearing that Ja owns him. Like, Steph is like super competitive. People like seem to think he's not, and that he doesn't have an ego. Like,
no, he's a killer.
Absolutely.
You can't be in that position and not be.
No, exactly. So I really want them to win tonight. But yeah, Memphis is definitely good. They got my attention and respect. I certainly wasn't giving it to them last year.
They're a fun team.
They are. They're good. They're really good.
I enjoy watching them, and I kind of enjoy how they sort of punch up with the Warriors and then they punch down on the Lakers. So it's a fun little rivalry. I mean, Memphis is obviously a completely different team, but the Warriors weren't really taken for real by anyone until they came back from 2-1 in Memphis.
Right.
And that was the series that created the dynasty.
And Memphis is interesting like that because even in the grit and grind era, like I feel like they're one of the small market teams. Like they always have like a solid team once they kind of get their stuff together. So they're relevant again, but they were relevant before. Ownership.
Yeah. Some of the teams are just have no idea what the hell they're doing. Like the Timberwolves have no clue what they're doing, right? I mean, that's why they're like, oh yeah, sure, we'll bring D'Angelo in and give you Wiggins and a pick. Like, right. I mean, they lucked into the Anthony Edwards pick because they were the number one pick overall. But otherwise, there's really not much going on. Memphis is smart. Like, yeah, they were down a little bit, but they weren't down for very long. They were able to retool, which is very difficult when people don't really, especially want to go to your city. But yeah, it's an important team. You wouldn't think so. It's an important team against the Warriors in this last decade. I just go back to when Steph was feeling all down because they were down 2-1 and he was playing like crap. And then Draymond.
And him and Dray always said they had a conversation and they figured it out. Something clicked.
They went and got barbecue in Memphis. Like Steph wanted to sit in his hotel room apparently. And Dray was like, no, you're coming out to dinner. and then they went and got barbecue. And I've never been to Memphis, but apparently Memphis barbecue is legit.
I
And
have been to
so
Memphis. I don't think I ate barbecue when I was there, but I just remember the food in general being very, very fucking good. Very good.
I heard Marcus recently on KMBR, the local station here, saying that Memphis is one of his favorite places to go on the road. It's like you don't want to be there for a series because you run out of stuff to do. But if you're only there for like a night or two, then it's super fun, great food. So
Great food.
it is
Great
a place I
food.
do want to visit. But yeah, it's gonna be if the Warriors and Grizzlies play in a playoff series, that is gonna be grueling. So
It is.
you want to avoid that at all costs. Stick them on the side of the bracket where they'd have to face, the Suns, in the quarterfinals, and stay as far away from Memphis as you possibly can.
Yeah. It would be good though. I would still like to see it, even though it would be grueling, but I
Oh,
would like to see it.
No, it'd be good. I mean, you don't want to like avoid the best teams. You want to carve through everybody to get to the championship. But it would definitely be. I don't know. I guess my main point, I'm rambling. I have a lot of respect for that team and that franchise, and like we were talking about before, I got a lot of love for Jaw. He's just super fun to watch.
He's great.
And
He's
the
great.
fact that he went to Memphis, I don't like the way that Zion has handled himself in New Orleans. Not just not being in shape and the weirdness about not knowing about the injury, but all the noise, the whispers of, oh, he'd kind of rather be in New York, or he'd kind of rather be in, so playing with his friends or whatever. Jaw's like, no, I'm gonna do a commercial saying how much you guys don't understand that I could take Memphis to the top. That's just kind of cool. I mean, I live in a big market. You live in a big market, so like we don't really care about small markets that much. But I don't know. I just appreciate that team.
I do, but I also think like Ja's just in a more functional organization. Like, Zion's young and the Pelicans are not a great org. So like I don't
No, they're
know.
not.
I don't know that I blame him for being youthful and also not wanting to be there with that organization. I always think it's wild that everyone's like, but I want to be in New York. Like, I mean, in fairness, the Knicks have seemed to turn some things around. So I'll save like some of my opinions on them, but as an organization, they've been run like shit for years. So I always think it's odd that guys are just like, I want to still play in New York. Like the organizations matter, man. They do. Like I get you want to be in New York, which I don't understand why, because a large part of the time you're here, it's going to be fucking cold. And I got to tell you, I haven't stepped foot outside my house today because it is cold. It's like, it gets cold in New York. Like summertime is like the best time here, and like the NBA season is out at that time. So it's a little weird to me how they all want to be in New York. Like I love New York and I rep New York, but I'm just like, if it's really just about being in a great city,
the nightlife is good. They like that.
it is, but ain't nobody trying to be outside in the winter. This is why they call it cuffing season and people get pregnant.
You get driven around though. If you're an NBA player, you're not walking on the streets.
I hear you, but it is cold.
You get dropped off at the back door.
And they're not even from northern cities. They're from. It is cold up here.
No, I know. We don't know cold in California when it's like 54 degrees. Everyone here's like, oh shit, like I mean, like me, like it's mid 50s right now. I got a hoodie on. That's the way it is. Like our blood gets real thin here. We don't deal with the cold well.
Yes,
you guys got to deal with craziness. Same in DC and Philly and Boston, all those places in the Northeast. I don't know how you do it, but also like that if you take over the Knicks and lead them to the top, your endorsement potential explodes.
I hear you.
So that's what they think about. But the thing is, the Knicks are still owned by James Dolan. I know they got Leon Rose. I know they're sort of gotten their stuff together a little bit over the last
it's still him, and he's a crazy man.
Still have the same owner. As long as your owner's James Dolan, then there's always a potential for complete and total disaster. And that's that way. It's not just in the NBA. It's every single team and every single sport. If your owner sucks, then you won't. If you're going to be good, it's a fluke, and it won't be for long. Generally,
Precisely.
And your bad times are going to last many, many years. We know that here way too well in Warriors country. When it was Chris Cohen, oh my God, it was just disaster. Now I sold tickets for like when I was like between jobs. I got a job with the Warriors. I was so excited. It was to sell season ticket packages. This is back in like 07, right? It was it was before that. It was We Believe year. It was like 04. So I was just out of college. I was like, oh man, I'm gonna get a job with the Warriors. I'm gonna move my way up in the organization. I'm gonna, just be great, get to work in sports. So my job was to just cold call all these numbers of people who had bought tickets on Ticketmaster in the previous like 5 years to a Warriors game. Not even season ticket
Sounds
holders,
fun.
just like they had bought tickets at some point.
Yeah.
And my job was to pitch season ticket packages for a team that featured Derek Fisher and Adonal Foyle. These are the people that I was supposed to mention, right? That was the good part of the team. So that we're not even talking about the bad parts of the team. So,
Right.
when people talk about, Warriors being front runner fans, yes, every team that gets good, you're going to get some front runner fans. But the people who've been watching this team since before 2012,
And there's a
they
lot
know
of them, and people
that
need
was
to
a
like,
shit. Like,
and there's a lot of them. I just want to give those people props because people really just act like the whole fan base is just new people and that like Warriors
oh, it's
fans don't
not.
exist. And like Oracle wasn't, popping. And, it's kind of like, why are y'all just lying? Like, why are you just lying about this? I don't understand.
I remember my first Warriors games I ever went to, both of them were against the Timberwolves for some reason. Like I went with my uncle and my cousin, and the Warriors were awful. Larry Hughes was playing point guard for the Warriors, which was just the most ridiculous thing you could. It was as bad as you can imagine. He was
Right.
a talented player, but he was a guy who's shooting 30% and didn't know how to pass, playing point guard. Anyway, the Kevin Garnett was what we went there for, and he was amazing because it was like young KG, where he's just jumping out of the gym and
One of my
blocking every
favorite
shot,
players. Yeah.
running the floor like crazy. And but the crowd was still crazy, even though the Timberwolves
Always.
waxed the Warriors both times. The crowd was
Always.
still high, so this I always figured myself, I was like, man, if I won the lottery or whatever, back when winning the lottery could get you an NBA team, like, man, I would buy the Warriors and make this, because I know this is a basketball region.
Yes.
The Niners kind of rule the area, and the Giants, when they're good, they get a lot of fans, but there's a lot of really like smart basketball fans here who are dying for something good to watch. Not Bobby Sura is like one of your three best players. So yeah, I'm mentioning a lot of Danny Fortson. I mean, like Fontio Cummings,
You're going
like
back.
Eric Dampier. Like, no, it was a desert here. It was dreadful.
It was. And that's why you have to always credit the fans who were there and who were around. And look, I love this fan base. I think they're great. I think Warriors fans are amazing. I think this team is amazing. And like I said, I'm here for it all. And the last 2 years in itself were sort of brutal. So like when people are getting annoyed that we're cocky right now, like we had Klay Thompson out for 2 years, had Stephen Curry gone for an entire season, right? Like that's a lot. Like we're gonna be celebratory now. We're gonna be excited about every win. Y'all were preying on our demise, talking about we're done. Yeah, we're gonna be arrogant, and that's just what it is. So
last season was just annoying to watch them, just because you got Kent Bazemore and Kelly Oubre running around and all that, and
last season was annoying because they actually could have been a better team. They
could have been a better team, and
they
sort of
probably
like,
wouldn't have won. But they definitely were better than an 8th seed. They were probably about a 4 or 5 seed team in reality, and all the other like hijinks and foolishness that went on in the background so they could get their other pick and secure it. I get it. I do get it. And it seems to be working out for them, but it was frustrating to watch as fans. And, many people feel like they wasted a year of Steph's prime. He could have gotten a 3rd MVP that season if they would have just given him a little help, filled some roster spots and so, but whatever, we're past that.
But the year before, that was the one that was the bad year. That's the year where the Warriors fans paid their dues. That was the worst team I've seen in a long time.
It was really bad.
I covered a bunch of those games.
But they won on Christmas Day.
I was there for that. Against the Rockets. That was the one game all year that Draymond busted his ass.
He
like,
did.
Like from the opening tip, I was like, oh, Draymond wants to win this game. And
that game was great. But I mean, can you imagine like watching that team all year? And we did. We watched every game. Because some of these players who like the fan base became attached to, I'm like, y'all gotta stop. Omari Spellman, oh no. I'm like, you guys, are you fucking kidding me? Like, who on this team right now do you want to get rid
Kai
of?
Bowman. Sky Bowman.
Everyone's like going crazy over Chris. I mean, Chris was a good guy. I'm sorry that he got injured, but like, there's no one right now on the squad who I want to give up for any of those players. So
Eric Pascal is a future All-Star.
I think he had a big game last night, even though Utah lost. Anyway, okay. So we predicted this road trip. And you said that you thought the Bulls were going to be the tougher matchup. Was that specifically for Clay in terms of who he'd have to defend? A tougher defensive matchup.
Right.
Was that specifically to Clay or was that in general?
That was for Clay.
Okay.
Yeah, not in general. I mean, I think, Giannis is the most dominant, force in the league probably in terms of, physicality and what he could do. And the Warriors aren't really that stocked up with big guys who can handle him with Draymond not on the floor. So that's going to be pretty tough too. Now, I was just talking about for Clay having to run around. I mean, they were having him play more bigger dudes against the Cavs, but that's also kind of a function of the Cavs roster too. They have Garland and they have big dudes and their wings are just okay. The Bulls are wing heavy, and so that's going to be, you're going to have to deal with a little bit of DeRozan. You have to switch on to Levine. So that's where I'd see, like, I don't really know if they want Clay running around after those guys. So that's why I think they're going to have him against Milwaukee. But like I said, if he looks like he's a little sluggish against Memphis, they might give him the 2 days of rest, say, all right, play against Chicago, and we'll do it that way.
Right. And then they'll have Minnesota, where I'm saying it's going to be a Wiggins game.
100%.
I wonder what he's going to be greeted like when he gets there, because I know those fans are upset. They're seeing what's happening now in Golden State and probably being like, what the fuck? Where was this guy? You have KG, who just came out with those comments, basically like saying like this was the environment he needed to be in, and so first they were like, oh, trying to clown us, saying we lost the trade. We clearly didn't lose the trade. So, no. I mean, I know this is not his first game back there, right? It's not. But I just wonder what that's going to be like, especially in a year where he's like in consideration for All-Star, right? I mean, who would have imagined? Like, the guy's totally revived his entire career. So,
yeah, I think there'll be some boos for sure. And Andrew will just not, his facial expression will not change. and it might make him mad. I mean, if I was Timberwolves fans and I wanted the team to win, they might not care at this point. They might just want to tank. But if they want the Warriors to lose that game, I'd leave Wiggins alone, because you can tell that when he actually gets pissed off, then that's when all of a sudden you might get a 40 spot going.
Yeah. I mean, Ant Edwards was big in the game where we played them earlier this year. He almost had a 50 piece.
Oh yeah, I love him.
And I don't know. I know Kat and D'Lo were out for a little bit in protocols, but I believe they're both back. So, I mean, Kat has been having a good season. That's going to be a tough game, though. All these games are going to be tough. Like, even though
trip.
I think even though the Wolves are like around 8 or something like that, that's going to be a tough team. So to play. So you're right. Like 2-2 is probably like a good outcome. I want 3-1 though. So they just got to figure that away. Yeah. I want 3-1.
I want 4-0. Damn it.
Better.
Let's win 70.
All right. Well, these next few games are going to be good. So thank you for coming on and helping me to like talk about them. And
of course, anytime.
Insight. I wish we had some more information. It's still so soon, and we're probably not going to know till like right before each game who's playing. So it's kind of hard to like get any deeper into the matchups. But the Warriors, this is one of the good things about them being deep this year. They have some options to work with.
Oh, yeah. And it's actually good in the long run to get guys minutes who have been kind of stagnating on the bench. So, yeah, I think Kuminga and Moody are going to be in Santa Cruz the whole time. I don't even know if they're coming on the trip.
I think they're gonna be there from Memphis, because I think there was just
are they? Okay,
yeah,
so they were called. I didn't see that.
There was a G League game for Memphis that just got played, so they're in town, so they're staying.
Oh, okay.
And they apparently won too. Like I heard they were like Moody was going crazy, and it was like a tight game, and they pulled it out. So that'll be good, So they're gonna be there. They'll be able to play. I think having Kuminga's like athleticism and size would be really good for this Memphis matchup. And we also got to remember Dylan Brooks. Dylan, why do I say Dylan? He's out.
Because it's ON.
Yeah, he's out. I would really love, like, if Moody is gonna at all be playing, I would just like to see him get going because he's been really good in his G League games.
Yeah.
You know, but
He had a move in that G League game I saw on Twitter that was crazy. That one where he kind of hung and
stroke. He just hasn't gotten going yet in like the games he's played. Like,
yeah,
he's been okay, but I know he can really shoot the ball. So I'm hoping at some point, you know, I'm sure if he had more repetition, we'd see it, but he doesn't. So
he's definitely a future rotation player with the potential to be more. I've liked what I've seen so far. It's tough to really get a rhythm when you're on a team that rolls 12 deep pretty much. And
yeah, he won't be a factor probably this year.
Not in the playoffs, no.
But considering that, I think it's going to be a very slim chance that we get to keep Otto Porter.
Yeah.
Next year.
Yeah, he's gonna get some money.
No, I don't even want to think about it. Okay, let's stay focused in the now. So anyway, Steve, again, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me and doing what you do. Guys, Steve is great, as you can see. Please, if you're not following him, make sure you follow him. Make sure you support him. Read his work. It's really good. And I know the Bay Area has a lot of baseball fans, and he's covering MLB right now and the A's. So you guys are always tweeting about it. I don't follow baseball at all, but I know a lot of people in the Bay Area do because they're all over. So you should definitely be following Steve. He's a good guy. He's wonderful to talk hoops with. So do that because you won't regret it. And also support on that. If you're listening, I know you're doing that, but please, please, guys, it takes 30 seconds. Leave a review. Apple Podcasts, you can do that. And you can also rate the show with 5 stars. You can also give 5-star ratings on Spotify. They only allow you to give 5 stars, nothing else. Okay, so but do that. Subscribe to the channel on YouTube. It's under On the Sidelines, OTS. That's my producer. It all really, really, really helps me as a content creator. So thank you. Until next time, I hope you enjoyed the show. And Steve, because I know that I did. And thanks for supporting, guys.